The heating and ventilating section of the ComSop is really an excellent roadmap of how to perform your inspection. 6.5.5 will actually guide you through the inventory your client needs so they can purchase the building intelligently. Within the ComSop, the first portion of the inspection we're going to look at is the gas meters. When looking at the standard, the gas meters, when multiple are present, should actually be identified with some form of labeling. In this particular case, I don't have any labeling. We do have two different sizes here. There are two different sizes here because two of the spots in this building are restaurants and one of them is a standard office space. And so they have larger meters for the amount of gas being used. Additionally, when looking at gas pipes, we should also have the pipes clearly labeled with some form of marking. The marking is typically found to be yellow or yellow with black lettering every 5 foot that says gas pipe. In this particular case, this is not properly coded or have the proper markings on them. So on my report, I would definitely make note that the meters are not labeled as well as the gas pipe is not labeled. The rest of our heating and venting section will happen up on the roof in this building. So let's head up there. In this particular inspection, we've moved up here on the roof. As you'll see, there are several units up here, but since we're only inspecting one single unit, this is the piece of equipment that only heats that unit. When inspecting through the ComSop, it's important to operate the heating unit only through normal controls. That normal control would be the thermostat. So you'd only operate it through that normal, switch it to heat mode and test it. If you find a unit that is off for any reason, off up here to service disconnect, off at a breaker, then don't test that unit. You were not there when that unit was shut off. Also, we want to make sure the units are accessible. Through the standard, it's very important to note that if we don't have any accessible access to this, that includes a fixed ladder or catwalk for anything that's above 16 foot from the ground. Also, any roof that has a slope greater than 25% must have a level working platform in front of it. So note that. That'd be a reason why that unit would be inaccessible, and you are required to identify any units that are inaccessible for inspection. Beyond that, we want to operate each unit and make sure that they work. These units that are up here on the roof are obviously not in a confined space, but it is very important when you do your inspections to note that if there's any units in a confined space, while we don't calculate for combustion air, we do need to be aware of the combustion air requirements necessary. Also, on all units, there should be a luminaire as well as a convenience receptacle. Now, in this particular unit, there's a convenience receptacle right on it, so we're in good shape, but it should be GFCI protected. As we do the inspection, we'll make sure that that operates. This is outside. We're up on the roof. A luminaire is not required here, but if it is in a closet or a confined space, we would expect to find some form of lighting in that room so that the technician or yourself can work in light and not have to have artificial light provided. Please refer to the ComSop when you're doing your inspection. It's very important that whenever you're up on the roof, you're walking with safety. In this particular roof, I've got an excellent walking pad here, so it's going to give me a little bit of traction. You always want to walk forward. You never ever want to walk backwards. If you walk backwards, you can't see. So just always be safe as you're going through here. When we're doing our heating inspection, it's important to look at all the air exits as well as the air intake for the unit. All exits of anything on the roof can't be within 10 foot of this piece of equipment. So that way we're not sucking in any of the noxious gases or anything else that might be coming from the building and be drawn in. If they're drawn into this appliance, then that will go through the living space or the working space, depending on the type of building you are in. Additionally, on these units, we do have an exhaust port. That's the flue pipe for this appliance. That can't be next to a window or any other piece of equipment as well. So if this is dropping out emissions, we can't have another piece of equipment next to it. And then we travel through, we do have our convenience outlet. We want to make sure that that operates. In this particular case, I've got the outlet right here, and then I trip and reset it, and it trips perfectly. There's not really a standard for how many should be there. There just needs to be an outlet that's up in the space to operate these units. In this particular roof, I've got an outlet on this appliance, I've got an outlet on another appliance, and then I've got another outlet a little further down. When we look at our gas pipe, You'll see at one point this was wonderfully painted. Now it's lost its coloring. Again, to re-emphasize, the coloring is so important, is it should be painted yellow or labeled gas in yellow tape with black writing on it, and that should be every 5 foot. You'll see that the gas pipes up on this roof are up on chairs. The chairs are preventing it from laying on the roof and abrasing the roof, as well as abrasing the pipe itself. So we want to double check for that. And then we'd walk the outside of the unit. One of the first things and most important things you should do when doing a commercial property inspection is think about what you need to supply your clients so that they can purchase their building intelligently. One of the first things you want to supply your client with is a what. What do they have? In this particular piece of equipment, this is a packaged unit. They call it a packaged unit because it's not only got the heater, but it's got the air conditioner installed in one cabinet. And so we have that. The next thing you want to do is want to identify how big it is, what the age is, what the manufacturer is. That would be noted with the label plate. In this particular case, this label plate has been worn off to the point that it's illegible. So I would want to document that on my report with a photo saying illegible label plate. And then I would make my best guess of how old this appliance is. This appliance is probably 15 to 20 years old, judging by kind of the wear and tear that's on it. So we would want to make sure we identify that and want to make sure that you let your client know that that was only a professional estimate and not the exact date that would be present on this. When multiple appliances are located up on a roof or located anywhere in the property, it's very difficult to know which appliance is for which unit, whether it's a multifamily or in this case, a commercial setting where I've got 4 large heating appliances up here. And so in this particular case, this one's actually labeled, it says number 1, and then on the bottom of it's 2. I don't know what that goes to, but I'm hoping that I'll find a thermostat that mirrors that. If I don't, I need to at least identify it on my report to call this unit number 1, 2. And then there might be another unit that's outside of this that'll have a different labeling on it, but that's very important to identify that. Some of the other components that we'll have before we actually test this unit out. In this particular case here, I've got this opening. This is most likely going to open up and get to our filter cavity. This is our burner cavity, and then this is the ductwork as it migrates through the rest of the building. We would want to encircle this unit and look for any physical damage. Let's take a look for that now. As we walk around the outside of the unit, earlier when I was talking about what I thought was the air filter chamber was not. The air filter chamber on this particular piece of equipment is on this side. That was the condensing chamber. There is no element within our standard that makes it mandatory that we have to take any of these covers off. It's a good idea to take them off. It'll give you certainly a good feeling of how the maintenance has been on these pieces of equipment, but it is absolutely not mandatory. What is mandatory though, we need to identify whether or not there's a condensation pipe. Condensation pipes are absolutely critical to the maintenance of this piece of equipment and the safe operation, because that trap that's created by that condensation pipe does not allow fresh air directly into the ductwork. Fresh air into the ductwork can be a nuisance and dangerous to anybody that's on the inside of the building. So again, identifying the condensate drain and making sure it's properly trapped is very important. Then we can migrate around the unit. We've got 2 intakes that are right here on the side. One of these intakes is just a normal fresh air intake. What that intake is typically found to have an aluminum screen on it. That aluminum screen is designed just to keep foreign matter out, because that would, every time this appliance comes on, it does have a cold air return side. The cold air return side is part of the ducting, but it does periodically introduce fresh air. So that keeps the building from being stale. On the bottom of it, we have an item called the economizer. And that's actually a mechanical louvered door that even brings in more fresh air as this unit asks for it. It doesn't work all the time, but periodically it will come on, and that's all driven by the thermostat and the inside air quality. Then we migrate the rest of the outside of this packaged unit, and we'll find the fins. If you look at these fins, I think it's pretty obvious that we have a tremendous amount of hail damage present. That's what all these little holes are, or we have people up here just kicking it a lot. I think it's hail damage. The rule of thumb has always been we can dent up to 20% of the fins and not ruin the cooling potential. In this particular case, as we're inspecting the cooling side, I might think that the fins are part of the issue, but we'll have to look for that as we operate this. And then on top of it, we have the fan. as well as the fan guard. They do make fin guards to protect it from hail. I mean, we are out in the absolute outdoors, and so there's no piece of protection that happens on this appliance. Then lastly, we want to look at the overall condition, make sure it's not rusted, make sure it's not damaged, make sure there's no water ponding on the top of it, and then after that, it's all set for just turning it on and operating it. We'll do that from the inside. Continuing with the heating and venting section of the CommSop section 6.5.5, we also have a lot of venting systems that are up here on the roof. These venting systems include makeup air for the kitchen. These will include bath exhausts that are present or any other exhausts that might be present. We also have normal stovepipes like we would have on the top of water heaters or any other type of heating appliance. Additionally, on this roof, we do have commercial exhaust. So we'll have 2 exhaust hoods that are up here. And then behind those, the square boxes that we have are the condensers that operate the walk-in coolers. Now, the condensers and some of those things are beyond the scope of the inspection, but it's good to take an inventory. One of the things on all of these that we have a common denominator of, they all need to be flashed to the roof. So I would expect that to be reviewed during the roofing section of your report. But when I'm looking at some of these pipes in the venting, then I'm also going to look at, are the pipes rusted? Are they connected? Do they have enough upward slope and pitch to exhaust? With this high parapet wall, we do need to get quite a bit higher to make sure that we do have exhaust. And we want to make sure that the caps are not rusted and are present so that water doesn't cascade down. But as far as the rest of the vents go, remember the other concern we have is in all these intake appliances, we can't have a vent within 10 foot. So on this particular unit here, I've got this wonderful boot that was installed directly under the air intake. Now our challenge with that is that will immediately exhaust whatever sewer gases are escaping through that plumbing vent and enter right into the makeup air. In this case, they vented it up and above. That's why we'll see on commercial buildings all this exaggeration for the plumbing stack pipes, is because we've got to get them up and above so that they're not going to foul the intakes of any of the other makeup airs or any of the other vents or any intakes for any of the furnaces. With that, the only thing else we have left to do with the heating side is to go inside, look at our ductwork, and operate these units. Let's go do that. The CommSop really doesn't dictate the order of operation and how you do your inspections. As part of the CCPIA's mission, we have created several checklists for you to be able to follow. These include all the various types of heating you might find. Today in the inspection, we've talked about the package unit. On the package unit that was located up on the roof. If you're finished with the roof, you'd come down into the interior. When that's being done, you typically have to look at the ductwork, making sure the ductwork is all intact and going through the building. In this particular building, we have this wonderful suspended ceiling. It is not mandatory that you go up above it, so we're not today. But you could move a representative sample of tiles to get up into the ceiling to look at the ductwork. In this particular case, how we're going to operate the system and verify that works is by using a simple thermometer. I'm going to use my infrared thermometer, and I'm going to take a temperature reading of the unit, verify that I'm cooling. I've got cooling, and so I would switch it to heat. In this particular inspection, I know this is the heating section. We are in the cooling mode right now, but I will switch it to heat and then test the system out exactly the same way that I would do in any other mode. Also, other considerations we need to look at are all the other heating appliances that might be present. One of the concerns we always will have is placement. Remember your standards. Remember that we shouldn't have any appliances that are drawing air from sleeping rooms or surgical rooms, and we got to make sure that we cover all of those standards for combustion air. We're not required to calculate combustion air, but we should understand what combustion air is. We also need to look at ignition. We need to make sure there are no appliances or pieces of equipment that have an ignition source that's going to be in a flammable area, such as a garage, a parking garage, a mechanic's garage, or any other flammable source like fuel dispensing area. If we have that, we want to make sure those units are up off the ground, a minimum of 18 inches. So be mindful of that. As you do your inspection though, try to follow the CommSop. Remember that a large portion of our inspection is an inventory, so your clients are going to want to know exactly what they have, how old it is it operating, and are there any systems or signs that there's some failures. Follow CommSop 6.5.5, and it will help you through the entire process.